My name is Desiré Rees. I studied psychology and communications, and I am a personal coach. Where do we start educating people so that they can better articulate their emotions? Because if we don't know where our pressure is coming from, we don't know how to deal with it. And then we feel overwhelmed. And that's where the depressive cycle and anxiety starts. And your body takes that information and it starts working with it. And very often what happens is when our brain can't verbalize something, we will then term it as a gut feel. And you know, Luke, that human connection, that is the biggest way to combat depression and anxiety. So why are we not having these adult conversations with people and going, I'd love to help you, but that behavior is just not okay here? You know, because in our profession, that leads to suicide.
Desiré Rees.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Oh, good.
And thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to bring some value into the space, but I also want to get to know why you do what you do and maybe share with Durban what you do. So maybe you could spend a couple of minutes just introducing yourself.
Yeah.
And we can go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Luke, and thanks for the opportunity to come and share.
Absolutely.
It's actually just amazing to see your passion for Durban and particularly Durban business. And I think that's what excited me about coming and sharing with you today, is just knowing that there's someone out there who's speaking into a space. I think we can become quite patriotic about our country. And then if you live in KZN, Durban, you do become patriotic about the businesses that are surviving and living. So I love it that you're creating a space for people to do that. So thanks.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So my name is Desiré Rees. I studied psychology and communications, and I am a personal coach. The company that I have, Human Co, is a way, it basically addresses the high suicide rate in the veterinary profession, which is an international phenomenon. It's not just specific to South Africa. But it's providing a safe space for where professionals can learn, grow, and be empowered towards preventative self-care. So we're wanting to, you know, the whole thing of Dr. Heal Thyself. It's creating a space that they can learn the skills that they need to look after themselves better while they are under high-stress situations.
Okay, so I'm just going to slow you down a little there.
Yes.
You have a business called Human Co.
Yes.
And you specifically cater for and service the veterinary industry.
Yes, so it is focused predominantly into the veterinary profession because that's, funny enough, where I found myself being.
Okay.
So having a passion for human beings and people development, and then found myself being married. I used to be married to a vet, and it was in that absorption of that industry and being at the university while he was doing his residency, owning a practice back in KZN, and realizing that there was such a skills deficiency within the profession. And with my background being people development, the challenge was put out to me, well, do something about it.
Okay.
So I took up the challenge and said, let's do it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So it started 12 years ago, the consultancy part, which I was doing part-time whilst raising children, whilst owning, we had some veterinary retail outlets at the same time. And it was just a way to kind of bridge the gap that I was seeing. And so I would do, CPD events and congresses, and then eventually the university said, won't you come in and lecture some of the undergraduates? And then it started getting a bit wider, and practices were needing some help. And so I go into vet practices as well and help them out. So it's been an interesting morph, because currently I think I'm the only person in South Africa who does this, who has a specific focus on the veterinary practices. There are people out there doing amazing things, but I think it's just the background that I have from being so absorbed in the profession, and bringing what I understand and know that has created value for those practices and those individuals. So, and then, 2 years ago, we decided, actually I was approached by a veterinary group. So it's a very unique system. It's not one of the corporate systems that are out in South Africa at the moment, but they partner with practices and they take over the responsibilities of practices that vets really don't enjoy. So it's the HR, it's the business side, it's the marketing side. And so they allow vets to be vets. And partner with them, but they still keep their individuality, they still keep their autonomy. And they said to me, we would love for our doctors and our nurses to have full access to you. And so I said, wonderful. So it enabled me to go full time in what I do. And then I was still able to support and provide services for the university and to my independent practices. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how long have you been not practicing, but running as Human Co? Because that's fairly recent,
yes,
right?
that is. So this will be our second year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate I got to hear a little bit of your story
Yes.
in another podcast that we've been producing. But you mentioned that you were quite involved and just happened to find yourself in the university space can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that probably links up with what you're doing.
Yes, so
now.
much. Yeah. So being married to a vet who decided he was going to do a residency in medicine, we had to move up to Onderstepoort because it's the only university in South Africa.
Where?
Onderstepoort.
Onderstepoort.
Yeah, I leave my Durban accent out of it.
Very English. Onderstepoort. Okay. Sounds like it should be like a sherry. Type of sherry.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Onderstepoort.
It's very far away from that, though. So it's a faculty of the University of Pretoria, and they're based like on the platteland, like in the Pretoria sort of outskirts, up northeast, and a beautiful faculty. Turning out some incredible doctors and nurses. And I mean, South Africa has a veterinary profession that is high sought after. We have other countries wanting our doctors and nurses. So we actually have a skills shortage in South Africa when it comes to vets and nurses because they are being pulled. Once they leave the university, I think we had 2/3 of our of the 2022 class actually immigrating. So it's a bit of a problem.
That's crazy. Hey?
It's a problem, yeah. But it does show you the level of what we're turning out in South Africa.
I believe a lot of our medical training and educated medical doctors and even paramedics are all highly sought after.
Yeah.
I don't know how true it is, but I've heard numerous times.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes if it's not the work ethic of a South African that makes the significant difference.
Just gotta work hard and make a plan.
It's all about attitude, actually.
Yeah.
So I mean, the residency, we went up, and the only way I was actually able to see my husband was I had to then hang out at the university. So what I learned was that if you make a carrot cake and you take it to Outies, which is where the outpatients for the university hospital is, then the students love you, and so it will be well with you if you feed doctors and nurses. So that was my trick. Yeah, I used to go and hang out with them and walk the halls of the university, get to feel and see what the students were going through, get to see where the foundation is for what the doctors and nurses were experiencing. And then from there, moving into private practice, into a specialist practice, seeing the pressure on the team, seeing the level of clients coming through into the practice as well, because obviously the clients are very energized, they're very stressed, they're full of anxiety, and so
the clients being the humans that bring their pets.
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And so the owners, so that has a significant contributor to contributes to the stress level of doctors and nurses, and then their patients as well. So seeing that, that human-animal bond and what that looks like on that level.
That's very interesting. So you started seeing a lack of something in that space, or was it something out of place, or what did you start recognizing?
It started. A lot of conversations was listening to the professors and the lecturers in the university talking about what they were feeling and seeing within their students. And then it was only when we stepped into actually owning a practice. And now you start interviewing staff.
Okay.
And you start asking questions. And because of my background, I want to delve a little deeper. I want to see how are they going to represent our business to our clients. It's not just about patient care, but it's also about engaging with the human beings who are attached to that pet.
Yes.
And they're the ones who often pay the bills. Well, they are the ones who pay the bills.
The ones that pay the bills.
Unless there's someone at home who's paying it. But it's making sure that they understand what's going on with their pet to the degree that they're confident that the value and the pricing of that patient care is worth it. And so it's the interaction between teams. You work 80% of your day with your team. It's a high pressure situation. A veterinary profession's high stress. If you can't deal with stress, then don't engage in the veterinary profession. A lot of people are like, oh, you must love animals. And the reality is vets love their animals. And they love what they do, but they're scientists. They're there to find solutions to problems.
Yeah.
And so they have to be curious. They have to be scientifically minded, and that does mean that they probably have lacked out on the people skills, because it's very rare that you see someone who can hold both spaces well. And so we have our A-type personalities, our academics, cerebrally motivated people versus the emotional side, which is the opposite. But actually you need both to be able to work in this profession.
You do. I think I would say that's the case for most industries. There is a huge lack of training and teaching, and whether it comes from the home or whether it comes from the institution, there's no focus on human interaction.
So it's an EQ skill, right?
Yeah,
so we're calling it the soft science. So where the university is teaching, they're learning these BVSC, their Bachelors of Veterinary Science. I come in with the soft science, the people skills. And EQ is it's not high up there. We've been talking about it for years, but it is still a space that needs to be developed more and more. And how do you, even the conversations I've had is, what is the soft skills that a veterinary professional needs in order to survive their practice? Because this is what contributes to the high suicide rate. It's not their lack of ability in diagnosing and treating their patients. It's the fact that the people pressure is too much, and couple that with financial issues, and then we've got this crazy cycle, because internally I actually don't know what to do with a difficult client. I don't know what to do when somebody is crying hysterically, and they're probably the fifth person I've had to deal with, whether it's a euthanasia or a difficult diagnosis. And then I have my team and I have my staff, and I've got to deal with my nurse, and I've got to deal with the receptionist, and there's cross-cultural stuff, and there's change in education level. There's so many pressures that go on, for the professional in that professional space. So I think the more that we can equip, and you're right, Luke, where does this come from? Is this a home thing? Should our universities be skilling? I mean, where does it start? Where do we start educating people so that they can better articulate their emotions? Because if we don't know where our pressure is coming we don't know how to deal with it. And then we feel overwhelmed. And that's where the depressive cycle and the anxiety starts. So it's about, I call it psychoeducation. We've got to be teaching individuals how to identify emotions and pressures so that they know how to deal with them, because we can control them. There's just this feeling that I can't, because it's unknown.
Yeah. I've got so many thoughts on this.
Yeah, me too.
And there's a few couple of rabbit holes we could go down here. But I often think about, so I'm thinking on the go here, but I often think about this thing of EQ and human to human skill, where we are taught to go after all these achievements and run your business and cure the patients. And even in the world of where our worlds become so, intertwined or merged with social media, and there is no, and that's a whole beast on its own, because you have people who can throw accusation, and they can there's actually no need to practice self-control there, because there is no accountability to the person that you're insulting or you challenging without them being face to face. And how much do you think the problems we have, or maybe let's not say problems, let's say lack of human to human skill, how much of that do you think stems from our integration with, and there's more and more of it, this integration with social media and the digital world, where it's not physical, it's not tangible, you don't actually deal with humans on a human to human level, you have this intermediate screen or an app or text between us. There's no connection. how much do you think that has affected?
Massive.
Yeah.
So there's a few levels for me. One would be the distraction component of social media. So social media distracts us from engaging with the emotions that I'm feeling at this given time.
With yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now I don't have to deal with that discomfort that I'm feeling with you. You know, maybe our engagement was a little iffy, you know, and I don't want to now have to go, why did Luke look a bit off to me? Or why did I feel a bit when I stepped away from that conversation? Let me just go to Instagram. I've done this myself. Like, I've totally distracted, opted out if I don't want to deal
cats.
with. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Pinterest, here we go.
Exactly.
It's a problem in the veterinary profession because firstly, we need our doctors, and particularly at the university, we need our students to be sitting and mulling over cases. So when they're sitting and waiting for the bloods to run or
whip out the phone,
but then I'm not thinking about my case. I'm not actually pondering what are some alternatives, what are options. Then that works on the emotional level. Oh, I had that difficult engagement with that client. What was off there? What was maybe some of the body language I didn't pick up on? You know, what was actually going on for the client in that room between her and her husband that actually I might need to ask about. Yeah. And then we'll have a better understanding of who kicked the dog. And that's why the dog is sore, because no one's going to actually come up and say they kicked the dog, right? So for me, the distraction of social media is an issue. Then I'm not learning how to deal with the difficult engagement with another human being. And it's like any muscle. The more you use it, the better you get. Conflict management skills. Everyone is so afraid of conflict management skills because I don't want to upset you. I don't want you not to like me anymore. I don't want you to have animosity. So it's so interesting. The whole thing of being liked, so the thumbs up, has filtered so badly into our engagement with each other that now I won't have a difficult conversation or a sticky conversation with you because I'm scared you're going to unfriend me or unlike me, and then that's where my validation and my worth is. So now all of a sudden my validation and my worth is upon what's happening on social media, not in, hey, we had that difficult conversation, but then I realized you were just tired and you've had a really rough weekend. And so you might not have landed all sparky and happy as you usually do, but you're not upset with me. Yeah. You know, and I can hold that space for you.
Yeah.
You know, how about I carry you while you're having a tough time?
Yeah.
But we don't know that because we won't get curious about what's going on with each other. And we're too scared to engage because it might cost you liking me. And so one of the things that I do try and help with the veterinary profession is to make sure that their identity is coming from the right place.
Okay.
And it's not being sourced in what everybody out there who I don't even know what their faces actually look like. What do they say about me? So what is that horrible client putting on Facebook about me? Because that's the stuff that leads to suicide.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if owners actually realize that. When you go and you say horrible things about a practice or a person,
which is very easy to do.
So easy. Like you were saying, as there's no emotional content. I don't have to watch your facial expressions and see how this affects your family and you for the rest of the day or the week or the months. I can just dish it out there because there's no boundaries.
Yeah.
There's no accountability. And so I can be as nasty or not nasty as I want to be. And that's tough because now what we're saying is, all right, so you as an individual need to learn to put up higher walls. So now it creates isolation even more. So now I'm going to get a tougher skin. I'm not going to listen to what's going on out there. And I shut down. And we don't really want that. That's not the vulnerability that we're needing in business, you know, and leadership and other aspects that come from. So I agree with you. You know, like with all things, there's that balance. And I think we're still learning what that healthy balance is with social media. Like, where is it your friend and then when does it become your foe?
I often think about, I think we're sitting in the generation where we're the first generation to have been introduced to this. I mean, if you think about it, we've, you know, born with zero to little cell phone exposure. Yeah. Then we have the introduction of cell phones, and within a 20-year, 25-year period, by the time we're 12 or 10 or 15, our worlds have completely changed. And we're the first generation to really be at the forefront of, or at the beginning stages of this technology and this new way we do life. but we haven't been taught how to manage ourselves and manage relationships and manage our domain and our terrain in this aspect, and it's completely consumed us. But there's still time, and I'm not a doomer and gloomer, but there is we got to learn these skills and how to navigate this and teach our kids how to control themselves and how to.
So that's one of the things that I think that social media and exactly what you're talking about is it's the speed at which it operates. And I think the problem is we're moving too fast, and our brains are able to deal with information, but it's on a process level. And so we're designed to work with the seasons. If you look at how nature moves and how our seasons move and the things around us move, there is a natural process with which we are able to deal with things. But because of technology, it's been sped up so quickly that not even our brains are able to keep up with it. So what happens is there'll be a stimulation, and then because I'm so used to things being so quick, I don't even give my body, like, let's sleep on it, or I'll wait till I get back to you. Let me just process that thing so that I can create a response, not a reaction. And so what's happening is we have these reactive engagements with each other that land badly, and this is where now all of a sudden we have breakdown in relationship, or I don't like talking to him because he just says ugly things. And actually maybe there's just the speed at what everything is going on around me, because I'm so used to scrolling and I'm so used to being able to get hold of so-and-so so fast, which has its advantages because I can have information so quickly. But when it comes to people dynamics, we do need to slow down. We need to allow our brains to process what's going on. And our brains are so beautiful. I often talk about the gut feeling, which when I deal with academics is like, what? Don't go there.
If you can't formulate it.
I think I must be like sometimes something that's that crazy redheaded girl going on about gut feeling. But the reality is your body is smart. You are picking up on information, nonverbal clues, reactions, motions, movements, similarities, those different things. And your body takes that information and it starts working with it. And very often what happens is when our brain can't verbalize something, we will then term it as a gut feel, because our brain hasn't yet been able to put a linguistic component to it. But actually, if I go, what's the gut feel here? You're actually just taking logical scientific evidence, internalizing it. Your brain hasn't got vocabulary, so it's sitting there. But if you go with that, you'll realize that was the right thing to go with.
Yeah. How many times do we say, I just knew it in my gut that I shouldn't have done that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, if you go back to research, I love evidence-based information. I work in the veterinary profession, so we have to work with evidence-based medicine because this is the way to go. But human being engagement, there's a lot of evidence and science behind why we do what we do. And if we can understand people better, then we can create that connection. So one of the biggest things for me with Human Co is to create connection between human beings, because this is the thing that we're lacking. And connection is about understanding myself better. So self-awareness. And then when I am aware of how I land in a space, then I can get curious about how you are landing in this space. And then how do you and I work together? How do we go with our differences, our individuality, the things that we have been given that makes us unique and really important in this world? Because we need, like I always say to the students, we don't need all the vets to be the same. We need you to be different from each other, because you're going into different communities and you're going to be finding solutions to things that your colleagues can't see because of your upbringing and your perspective and your background and your culture.
So good.
And so there's that integration. And then the second one is people behavior change. We all come, again, from our background. Maybe I lived in East Africa for a period of time, and I lived with an Italian lady, and her dad came out from Italy, and they were busy chatting, and things got so heated, and it got so out of control. And internally, like my Western culture setting was like, oh, this is terrible, I'm going to go and hide. So So I quietly slipped off outside and I sat in the terrible heat because now all the aircon's inside, not outside. And I mean, we're sitting right on the equator in Dar es Salaam. And eventually I heard things simmer down and I slid back inside. I went, Alex, what's happening with you and Dad? Like, what's happened? You know, I'm so sorry. Is everything okay? And she's like, no, Des, we're just discussing the football score. And then, you know, like, so my culture was so different to the Italian culture, which is very out there, very open and wild. So now we go and take these different personalities and we pop them in one business. And we're like, right, so make money. You save lives.
Yeah. And be kind.
And
But you don't know how to.
No. And so it's about teaching people to understand themselves better. But then also, how do we create a culture in our business that's our family culture? So you come from your family, I come from mine. We'll have guys that come from the local townships. We know, with maybe basic education, we have individuals who've maybe come from the top schools and they're highly educated, they're top of their classes, and now we stick us all together and we throw in some wild cards and now we've got to save lives. And so that's where things can go wrong. But actually, we can have conversations, we can decide what we want to do to create our own practice culture, family culture, so that we know how to work with each other. We can be, and for me, it's about respect. How do we respect each other? And doesn't matter what our differences are, we are still working with the same objective, and that's to get this patient home healthy and do the things that we're passionate about and that we love doing. That's awesome. So it's about allowing that space to be safe for everybody to arrive at their best.
So, I mean, this space really, really interests me.
Mm-hmm.
I've got such a huge appreciation for it and for creating culture and building communities. Because I mean, essentially, in a practice, you are building a community.
You are,
And I think I have by no means have this waxed, but I really, and what I'm picking up, what you're saying also is that in order for us to be ourselves, to understand someone else, be empathetic, we've got to look after ourselves and we've got to learn to be present and understand ourselves. And maybe, do you have some thoughts on how we can, even as business owners, learn to be present with ourselves and learn to just understand ourselves better so that we can empathize with other people, so we can empathize with the customer that's being a complete idiot, but they're only being an idiot because they've got their own story and we don't understand that, but we don't cross the bridge to try and understand that. Even if you don't need to cross the bridge, let's just understand. I think self-awareness breeds awareness of other people's situations too. So maybe could you speak to that a little bit?
So I think for me, this starts with you can't be curious about yourself and other people if you are judging, if you're judgmental. And very often what happens is we become judgy of other people in the very thing that we feel guilt and shame for.
Okay.
And so sometimes we need to take a step back. And for me, the guilt and shame is probably one of our greatest motivators. I feel guilty for not doing this. I feel ashamed because of that. But it's silent. So you've actually got to sit back and go, where's this numbing coming from, or this anger coming from, or the snappiness that I have with my kids, or the grumpiness that I have with my colleagues? Where's that coming from? And then if we go back, okay, then we actually go, what are you feeling ashamed of? What are you feeling guilty of? Because if you find yourself being judgmental of the client in front of you or the staff around you, it's usually the thing that you're feeling shamed for. And then you've got to start talking to your, we have this gremlin, this little internal gremlin that actually comes from our childhood. So now we're going to be unpacking stuff, right? But you don't have to go too far in your dark past. You just got to go, all right, what's happening here? I'm looking at Mrs. So-and-so and I'm like so judging her right now. And what's going on for me there? So it is about being present with yourself, actually. And even I think so many of us, and particularly in business, is there's this like push. and you wake up and the kids are awake and it's crazy, and then the dog needs to be fed, the dishwasher needs to unpack, maybe you need to go and fetch the nanny, or you got to drop the kids off at school. And so all of a sudden we start playing these roles, and then on top of that we need to do a job to make money, to put food on the table, and we just go. And so it's hard to take a step back in a moment and to check in with myself. And generally, we start being unkind with other people when we're unkind with ourselves. And so one of the tips that could be helpful is actually starting every day. I like to take about 5 minutes, and just whether you have a devotional or you have a moment of just peace and quiet, but it's where you'll actually, so there's a few things you can do. One is you can close your eyes and you can listen. So you try and listen for different layers of noise. So whether it's the birds, if there's crickets, is it wind, is it cars? So you try and see what you're hearing, because that allows you to be present in the moment.
Yes.
Then the other one is seeing. So if you can look far, so I want to look what's here, the color of the flowers, the tree, is it moving, what's happening further down the line. Like if I look out my window and I look far down, what's happening there? And then the other one is the physical sensation. So I'll be sitting on the chair or wherever you are, on the bed or whatever, and then you want to feel the floor under your feet, and you want to feel the back of the chair on your legs, and the sensation. So going from the tips of your toes all the way to the top of your head and your fingers, and taking that present moment in it. And you can practice that. So it's called mindfulness, but it's not the Eastern mysticism of like transcending into whole new levels. It's just being aware of what's happening here. And then for me, one of the things I realized that I stopped doing was that I was speaking past people. I was so busy. I had so much on my mind. I have so many problems I need to solve, and things emails I need to get to, and phone calls I need to make, that people were talking to me, and I couldn't even remember conversations I was having with them because I wasn't engaging with them.
Yeah.
So I try and eyeball people. And that takes also a level of vulnerability to look you in the eyes.
It does.
It means that you could see it's so much easier not to look you in the eye and to look over your shoulder and talk to you, but I'm actually looking at the conversation people are having behind you. And so when we can hold a space for each other, that's where I get most excited, is when I have those engagements with people and I'm like, wow, we were totally in that moment.
Yeah.
We shared something.
There was a human connection.
There was a human connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where
awesome.
you walk away feeling fulfilled. That's where you start feeling like it doesn't matter what happened in the day. Did I tickle those boxes? No way. But wow, did I experience my day? It didn't just go straight past me.
Yeah, completely. Because we spend our lives looking for those connection points.
We do.
And we don't have those connection points because we're connecting. And I'm not saying technology is bad at all. Don't hear what What I'm saying is that we don't have real connection on our devices. And we spend the majority of our day on our devices, disassociating with ourselves and with what's going on around us. We're on email, we're on Zoom calls, we're on all these things in a, let's say, non-tangible world.
Yeah.
And we spend very little time here. And when we are here, we're thinking about all the other things.
And Luke, that human connection, that is the biggest way to combat depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
Number one reason, a way to, that is if all the other things are fantastic. I mean, they work, they have a place. But it's usually if you're starting to feel depressed and the sort of the drain pipe of depression starts sitting and anxiety starts happening, if we have a look, we've probably isolated ourselves from connection.
Completely.
And that's why community is so important. And I love what you're saying about even the business community, because I think that's important too. We need to be integrating with, like for me, there are many people who do what I do in the profession. I'm the only one who has the particular niche that I'm in. But I have colleagues where we've had discussions and we're like, wow, the veterinary profession has been such a dog-eat-dog, excuse the pun, profession.
Oh, we're bringing the dad jokes.
Yeah, there we go. Got to spice it up. But we've, historically that's how it's been, because I'm so scared of my client going to my competitor down the road that I start giving discounts. I start doing things that actually is bad for my business model. It doesn't make money. It hurts my bottom line. I resent doing it. So it then builds bad relationship. Or I allow the client to speak to me in an ugly way, or I allow them to dictate what goes on, even though professionally I know that's not correct. And And so when we have conversations about, what you do after hours, we'll do this. We've got each other's backs. Or if you need to take leave, we'll cover you, but I promise we'll send, your clients back to you. We're not going to steal them. And all of a sudden, again, we operate on respect.
Yeah.
And healthy boundaries, checking in with each other. And so for me, I feel like we need to start operating what we call in psychology as an adult space. This is where we don't manipulate each other to get what we want. When I have a need, I can ask for it. And if you can't deliver or you can't help me, you go, thanks, Des, I'd love to, but I'm emotionally unable to, or I don't have time to. Is there anybody else? And so, saying to our clients, guys, we don't talk to each other like that. Please, no swearing and shouting in this practice. We want to help you. We want to do what's best for your pets, but we need to be treating each other nicely.
Yeah.
And there's this fear that we can't be putting up boundaries about what behavior is okay because I'm scared I'm going to lose the business. But if we all do it, then we've trained people to behave nicely. Yeah. And we do have this kind of like internal industry joke about like, why do veterinary practices always attract the crazies? And I'm sure every profession feels like that, but it's just like people behave so badly when they bring their pets into the vets. And it's like, when did that become okay?
Yeah, who allows that?
Yeah, who gave permission for this to happen? But you know what? It's when we don't say anything. We've given permission for it to happen.
Yeah.
And so why are we not having these adult conversations with people and going, I'd love to help you, but that behavior is just not okay here.
Yeah, completely.
Because in our profession, that leads to suicide. You have enough people speaking badly, speaking down, criticizing, manipulating. And the veterinary profession are the worst on themselves. They are the hardest on themselves. You have no idea how they are going home dreaming about your pet and have they made the right diagnosis? Did they use the right drug? They are pedantic about those animals in their practice.
Yeah.
And so actually they need a bit of kindness. And I think it's probably something we should be doing all around us, is actually just being kind to each other. Everyone is working the hardest that they can to do the best that they can. And it's one of the approaches that we talk about is offering the best possible intent on each other. So not thinking the worst. When I see you land in a space, I'm going to think the best, that you are bringing your best to the space, not you bringing your worst.
Yeah.
And then going and engaging from there. Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
We could keep talking about
We could.
Oh, man. But I wanted to ask you, what are some really exciting projects that you are working on or working towards at the moment?
Oh, yes.
That you are allowed to and can or feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah.
I'm sure you, I kind of know that you have some stuff in the background.
Yeah.
But what are you working towards right now?
So we are looking at developing online training for the doctors and the nurses so that they can upskill in their people development skills, which is something I've done historically for 12, 13 years, but now it'll be available on demand so they can click on it and download it and watch it at their own whenever they have a free moment. The other one is looking at business culture within the veterinary profession. So looking at making the change. The veterinary profession has a lot of women in it. So we have majority of our vets are actually female. And so looking at how to develop a business culture that operates and lends itself to working mums, as well as a culture that's not toxic. Because we do see a lot of toxic behavior coming through in the veterinary profession. So I've been working with a group it's actually so fun because never have I worked with such amazing people trying things that have never been done before in this profession. And we're giving ourselves permission to get messy.
Well done.
And make mistakes and learn as we go along. So we're looking at creating autonomy within the practices, so it creates a good business model for veterinary practices so that vets want to stay in South Africa. They want to be in that work environment, that they're not then suffering from compassion fatigue, burnout, stress, anxiety, and again, wanting to eliminate the suicide rates. And then the other one that is kind of on the background is a passion of mine, which is mental first aid health.
Okay.
And so being able to provide people with the skills and the tools to support each other in practice. So if you are having a tough time and it is getting a bit heavy and stuff isn't going so easy for you, how do I support you in a way that I walk alongside you, that maybe you don't need to then go and see a psychiatrist or psychologist just yet. We might actually, because we have the skills that we need. We all have coping mechanisms.
And that's a point of community.
Yeah. So now it's training community. So like,
awesome.
how do you do that for each other?
Yeah.
So that's sort of still coming forward. But yeah, the webinars online and then working in the practices and then coaching. So I do coaching. So it's about holding that preventative self-care space for professionals so that they're able to look after themselves better so they don't get to that burnout phase. And it's catching them before it's time to maybe whether it's medication or hospitalization or they need to go off for 3 weeks. How do we make sure that we can actually enjoy our everyday in a way that's significant and fulfilling? And I love my patients. They don't just become a number, and do it in a way that's healthy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So exciting. I love seeing this type of thing. I feel workplaces need to have a far more holistic approach and should be an employee first environment where we look after our employees first.
Yeah.
Because if we look after ourselves and our employees and our business culture, we'll look after our
it really is.
customers and our clients well.
Look after people and the money will follow.
Yeah, and I think, that thought disappeared very quickly. But that's cool. So Des, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank
We
you.
can keep going.
Yes, we can.
I've got a lot of questions and lots of things I'd love to chat about, but I'm aware of our time and our listeners' time. So where can people find you? And
So we can go on to www.humanco.solutions. That's our website. We also provide, so I do the transformation side, which is the people development and the soft skills. And then a colleague of mine does the transactional side, which is the HR and payroll and CCMA and sort of the contractual side of people. So the legal side. And we often find the two interplay so well. So we've partnered to be able to have a holistic offering for our practices and clients. We do have clients outside of the veterinary profession, people who hold the same space. So we provide resources for them as well. And just like Luke, thank you for what you've been doing for businesses in Durban. I think this is an amazing initiative, and thanks to our listeners for giving up their time to listen to this.
Yes, always thankful for that.
Yeah.
Your time is very valuable. Yeah, well, thank you, Des. Appreciate it. Thank you for the chats.
Yeah, good.
And I cannot wait to see how you move into the future and the success that you attain and achieve.
Let's see where this journey goes. I'm excited for it. It's still in its infancy. And so I think there's a lot more growth. I'm excited about what's happening in South Africa. I'm excited about what we can all do collectively, and the changes that it will bring are going to be good ones. And that's,
what are the top 3 things you love about South Africa? Right
Me,
now? Yeah.
I love our people. So I've traveled quite a bit, and I just love the friendliness of South Africans. Like, you'll walk on a road and people greet each other. You don't see that overseas. I think always food.
Food is good.
Food brings community, right? So if you want to get people together, feed them. And I love our food. I love that we eat, braais and potjies and, all those things that are good bring community together. And then we have one of the most beautiful countries. Even other parts of Africa that are untouched, we've been to, like Ethiopia, like magnificent. But like coming back, like KZN, we've got the bush, the berg, and the beach. And there are not many spots that have all 3 of those.
In 1 hour, in any direction.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can get out. So for me, to talk about mental health, it's so much easier in KZN because it's quick for you to go out and be in the green and be in nature and go for a walk with your dogs and go out with the family. So for me, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be making my investment into the future.
That's awesome. I've got such hope for Durban.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's the underdog. It's underrated, understated, and misunderstood.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see how we go forward.
Do you know what fascinates me about people from KZN and particularly Durban? If you have a look at some of our industry leaders, like we got key people who are making big differences in the rest of the world, and they all come from Durban.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
It is like when I went through and I actually thought about people I know that have made significant difference to industry, to in their own profession, whether it was creatively, academically, sports-wise, business-wise, like really forerunners. I'm like, there must be something in the water and it's not E. coli. There's something going on in KZN, because we really know how to churn out those forerunners, thinkers. We've just, I don't know if it's an attitude, if it's the climate, what it is, but I'm like, this is where I want to raise my kids.
Yeah,
got opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Des, thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
And we'll see you around.
Yeah, I hope so.
Cool.
Bye.